meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Red Oak. It is 7 o'clock, November 2nd, 2020, and we are located here at the Red Oak Municipal Center, 200 Lakeview. And today we have Derek Parks and Willie Franklin joining us through Zoom. And we have Leroy Weiss and Lance Brooks, and as well as me, Phil Sykes, here present at the meeting along with staff. And we are going to start our meeting today with our consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, consideration of the minutes from October 5th and October 13th, and the consideration of approving a preliminary plat for Creek Bend Addition Phase 2. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, then can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
A motion that we approve the consent agenda item.
I second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None? All right, motion carries. All right, so we'll move on down to our new business, item C, which is to conduct a public hearing and consider changing the zoning from commercial C1 to planned development district, with the uses generally from the commercial district C1 and allowing for a vertical mixed-use building to include apartments on upper floors at 109 South Main Street, Red Oak, Texas, and the case is requested by Steve Gonzalez. So this is, well, I guess we'll get briefs from staff, and then we'll conduct our public hearing.
Hey, just a real quick check. So is this what y'all are saying on the share? No. What are you thinking? File. Just your file. So. There you go. Okay. There you go. And I apologize, I left this map out of y'all's packet, leaving you completely blinded as to what the case was. I'm sure y'all figured it. And also one other quick note, I believe I've also failed to give you all other information, which was Tim Campbell is one of our new planning and zoning alternate members, and he's joining us via Zoom. So I apologize to y'all as well as Tim Campbell for not mentioning that via email earlier. But at any rate, so for 109 South Main, as you can see, this is the area. It's got a C1 zoning district for that area, as well as an overlay of the historic district. And this kind of just allows some flexibility with the idea of having apartments above commercial retail, and generally to try to encourage doing some kind of historic type of development, whether it's new or redevelopment. Let's see, here let's try to navigate this. I think it's better to start with a building view here. Share. Need a bigger monitor. And also, real quick note, since we have a little time this time with the case, unlike our special meeting last time where we were kind of under the gun to get through a lot of stuff before a meeting followed, I'm going to put some comments sort of on these PDFs that kind of reflect from your report to help guide our conversation, but also I'm going to try to maybe document the stuff as y'all discuss. I mean, you may not like comments we made, or you may have ideas, whatever. I'm going to try to document it so when y'all do have your discussion, you get to your motion, maybe you can kind of point like at the PDF, as it were, in the motion, like, yeah, that, or no, not that. So we'll try this out. It's a bit of an experiment. But anyways, so this is the elevation, so 3 stories. balconies on the front, and I would I'm not an architect, so I can't tell you the exact architectural vernacular. I guess broadly speaking, I might call it sort of a neo-traditional because it's got some contemporary flair, but it certainly has traditional elements with soldier courses of brick and using brick, and down here, mosaic tile. So there's a lot of interesting architectural features in this building. And bear with me as I try to get to the site plan here. And now I've got it. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see the site plan now. So this is a challenging site to develop, of course. It's 5,000 square foot lot, about 5,700 square feet of a lot. So it's kind of small, under the standard technically for C1. That's one of several reasons why the PD request. They're providing 4 parking spaces. Well, currently they're showing the idea of providing 4 parking spaces on site in the back with a dumpster facility on site in the back off the alley, when the alley's off Water Street. They are also providing 6 parking spaces in front of the building, 3 on the north side of South Main and 3 on the south side of South Main. And so we've got a total of 10 parking spaces. So of course, anytime you try to, and Willie and Phil, and y'all know this probably better than I do with your experiences in Dallas, trying to redevelop or develop in a historic area is really challenging, especially when it comes to parking and dumpsters. In my limited experience, it seems like that's what always gets you, is parking and dumpsters. But if you're going to develop, you kind of have to make some trade-offs, But this is kind of an exciting project, 3 stories. Normally also 2 or 2.5, I believe, is the max. They're asking for 3. This kind of is part of market realities. Y'all, if you followed the news, the lumber prices are up more than 200% since COVID started. It'll probably come back down, but right now, it's created uncertainty, the expenses of construction going up. So all that to say, another reason for 3 stories. And he's proposed 4 apartment units, and then the ground floor being the retail commercial. So you're looking at, say, 2,000 square feet of retail commercial office type space on the ground floor, with 4 approximately 1,000 square foot units on second and third floors above. So a total of 4 apartment units. We had originally a plan in talking with the applicant where we had 6 spaces in the back, but that was trying to use the rolling bins instead of a dumpster. But after the applicant met with CWD, our trash service provider, that was a no-go of an idea with the rolling bin, so we've got to use a dumpster. So that's one of our limitations. The applicant talked to this property owner up here, the outreach center, to see if he could maybe have an agreement to put a dumpster on this corner. That would have been probably our ideal scenario. Work out they can have a shared agreement to provide a dumpster there. That way you could keep 6 parking spaces in the back of this building. But apparently that property is for sale. The property owner doesn't want to obligate the next buyer to that issue. So the applicant then had proposed 5 spaces in a dumpster in the back, but then I guess with trying to figure out safely being able to get in and out of the parking lot and everything, then thought better of it and went down to 4 with the dumpster. So, now they're proposing 4 spaces in the dumpster and back. Ben and I also have an idea that we've not talked with the applicant. We were kind of batting this around more recently, which is the idea of working out a right-of-way agreement to possibly consider putting a dumpster here in the alley. It's 10 feet wide, and that's the bare minimum So basically that you need to put a dumpster with the enclosure, with the masonry enclosure, you know, and everything around it. If that would be a way of getting more spaces in the back. But that said, though, I mean, with these old style developments, some of them never even have parking on site. But it just seems like if you had 4 apartment units and let's assume 2 business tenants on the ground floor, it just seems like it would probably be nice sort of if each kind of primary had one space in the back dedicated to them. Granted, you still got 6 spaces out front, and some kind of retail office type business is not going to operate 24/7. So, you know, even with people working at home, not everyone's home all day. Like, if there's multiple people, usually someone, I know my wife and I, we're trading off days, it seems like. So having the 6 spaces in front probably works for evenings and weekends for the most part. And we kind of have to start somewhere if we want to encourage development in this downtown historic area. I think that cliched phrase of don't let, you know, was it you know, perfect is the enemy of the good. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. Not to say we don't want to try to make it as good as it can possibly be, of course. But like I say, I think there may be some trade-offs here. And so as far as otherwise about the site layout, we've got an 8-foot wide sidewalk. There's benches and some planter boxes. And I can jump back to the elevations, but there was kind of the bump out of the building with the awning. Not to mention the balconies in front, which all can help to kind of create some shade. So thinking, you know, down the road, hopefully more buildings build and it redevelops and people want to walk by buildings and, you know, you're getting a little bit of some shade there from our summer suns. Let me jump to, unless anybody has any questions, I was going to jump back to another image. Or Ben, if you have any site comments you want to make?
Yeah, I think it's just important to note that, you know, like Brian said, when we're working down in these old areas, you know, we're talking about redevelopment. We're talking about brownfield development versus greenfield development. So I'm a big proponent of downtown developments in general. And like Brian said, parking and the dumpsters are always the issue. And along with that will come drainage issues. So, but from an engineering standpoint, I'm always apt to lessen those requirements just so that, you know, it just makes sense to do that. You got to look at these individually and understand that we want to encourage development and we don't want to apply strict standards when we don't necessarily have to. So I think we kind of got what we would need here on a bare minimum from an access standpoint. I think I'm with Brian here. I don't think it's requiring it doesn't provide enough parking, even though I would say I'm not generally one for over parking a site, but 1.5 spaces per residential unit seems pretty good for the back, and that would be 6. But the access, you know, we had them do it. So right now, that's all just gravel. So if you see kind of back there where it comes off Water Street, that's all just gravel. And so they are showing to, you know, upgrade that to concrete for fire access and also access for the patrons or whoever's going to live in the apartments. And so that's a good value add for the city. But, you know, I think the biggest thing is, you know, from my standpoint when I look at it is we just got to be reasonable with our requirements from, you know, an engineering standpoint certainly, but parking too, which this would require. You know, if you look at our base parking standards, it'd be like, yeah, 10 spaces or something crazy. I think it's 2 spaces per unit for our base apartment style requirement. That would just be obviously way too many. But I think it's a good start to the downtown too. We can talk more about that later.
May I ask a question since we're on parking?
Oh, sure.
Looking at the four spaces and the ingress to get to the space, the maneuverability. What are your thoughts on that with these four spaces? Being that this is
It's
such a
not good.
small lot.
Yeah, it's not good. But again, you know, when trying to realistically do this, you know, what they would be doing is kind of backing off to the kind of south there, and then probably having to do a 3-point turn. It's not ideal, but with the low volume that would be in there, I don't have a big concern from like a safety standpoint or anything. But again, it kind of goes back to that greenfield versus brownfield development. I mean, we're trying to shoehorn this thing in here where it's already the lot size is already kind of set for us, and we kind of have to deal with that. So I really think when we're talking about these downtown type developments, we have to really relax certainly the engineering standards, and from a classic zoning standpoint, being parking dumpster, we need to kind of relax those or have creative solutions for those as well. On the other end of the spectrum from zoning, I think we should be kicking it up a notch on the building, for sure. But they've done that. But yeah, from a parking and maneuverability, it's not great. You're going to see 3-point turns happening in there on a regular basis. But that's why we also had them go ahead and do some parking out there along the street in the front, because any classic downtown layout, you know, has parallel parking or some type of head end or back end angled parking along the frontages of the business.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jump back to one of the elevations. So this is the backside view from the alley, just showing it just, you know, because you hadn't seen it yet. It's very similar, you know, to the front, has awnings even, just not the balcony. But let me go back to like the way the things drop down. Okay, so jumping back to our front view, which I think is kind of more important. I guess when it comes up, a question for the applicant as well as for you is in the building plan, in the floor plan, it shows that there's a door that opens to the balcony, and it's a good sized balcony. It was 6 feet by
6 or 7 by 14 wide.
Yeah, so it's 6 by 14, so it's a good functional balcony size. So I'd hope there's going to be a door going to it with that size balcony, so it should be more than just aesthetics. It should be functional. But again, that's kind of a question for y'all, how you feel about it, and a question for the applicant as to what was the intent, because again, the floor plan shows a door, but this elevation does not. So we would certainly need, you know, to see that addressed and changed as needed. The other thing is, and I'll show it here in a second, I threw together some language also that I'm more familiar with the idea that, you know, a screening requirement for the mechanicals, so whether they're on the ground floor or they're up here on the roof, the basic idea is we don't want to see it. And what that means from the roof is the idea that 200 feet away at a 6-foot elevation, I should not see stuff on top of the roof. So given that this would be a 3-story building, taller than the other buildings in the area currently, and probably viewable from 342, you know, that way we ensure that you know, if from 342 somebody sees it, it's yay barely, you know. So hopefully that's a standard I'm familiar with that seems to work well. And then also threw together some language basically to the idea that on these balconies, these are not for storage and your stuff. It's one thing to have some outdoor furniture there, like some chairs and a table, have your morning espresso or whatever. But that's not where, you know, we want storage. But if y'all have other thoughts on that when we get to it, I mean, feel free to, you know, chime in. You know, but figure, you know, we don't want to see satellite dishes, you know, that kind of stuff on there. I think I used the term unsightly, so it's obviously subjective. Sort of a catch-all. But, and so maybe I should go ahead and jump to that. Let's see here. So I was clarifying just a maximum of 40 feet. They had written 3 stories or 40 feet. So I was just clarifying that it'd be 3 stories or a maximum of 40 feet in the TD.
And what we're looking at is their written development standards, right?
Yeah, right. And I was kind of going with what they submitted, but I've crossed some stuff out because, you know, they're showing floor plans with 4 1,000 square foot units, and I'll show you that in a second, which I would call governing if that's included as an exhibit. But since they have text here, I scratched out the efficiency in the 1 bedroom of 600 square feet. You know, actually theirs were 2 bedroom, I believe. I'll double check. Yeah, theirs were 2 bedroom. They were closer to, I think, just under 1,000 square feet, depending on what you include. So I just kind of left it at their 750. And then, let's see, I scratched out the thing about adding 150 square feet because I just figured we don't want to complicate it. This is kind of an old style or older style development where I think you're basically going to have bedrooms, bathroom, kitchen, living area. You know, and just my 2 cents is let the architect and market forces sort out the inside. My opinion on zoning is it generally should stop at the front door. We shouldn't really be taking zoning in through the front door. But it's y'all's call ultimately, or recommendation. That's just my 2 cents. And then we've kind of been talking about the parking, but it's something that ultimately we'll need to decide on is how many to require. You know, I think Ben articulated a really good point about, you know, if we set aside the challenges of the site for the moment, you know, really we probably would say if there's 4 apartment units, you'd want 1.5 spaces per unit. It just seems like a good standard.
And that's low based on our
Yeah.
current zoning standard
Yeah.
of 2 spaces per unit.
Yeah. So, again, but we'll have to make trade-offs, but just wanted to reemphasize Ben's point that, you know, the 6 makes a lot of sense. And then, just, yeah, going along with, yeah, street parking would be permitted to basically provide for any other parking you may need. And then on the landscaping, I scratched all this out because really it's going to be whatever's on the site plan as a landscaping. There's not really any point in trying to get fancy with that, you know. 4 planter boxes, I mean, that may be it. That's as far, you know, there's just no room on the site. Then the lot size, his is close to 5,700 square feet. He put in 5,000. I mean, that's fine. This only applies to his lot. But he did put in the C1 standard just so you have an idea of sort of what you're changing from. But again, this is a historic district. So the C1 standard is a standard that's applied to interstate frontage, to an arterial road. You know, that's a completely different environment, obviously, than a historical downtown area. So it would make sense to change or to vary from that C1 standard. So again, he's proposed the 5,000 square feet. A minimum lot width of 60, his is closer to 70. A minimum lot length of 80, his is closer to 90. So I think he's just giving himself some padding there. But again, the actual site plan and all that is what governs. Let's see, the side yard setback, again, the C1 standard is really for like suburban form development. It's not for urban or historical. So I scratched it out, but again, it's y'all's call. If you want it back in, we'll do it. To me, from my perspective, it wouldn't make sense. And then again, just the parking issue and some notes. And then this is on the need to add what I was telling you earlier, mechanical equipment screening language, just shielding from view on all sides, adjacent viewing, you know, not being able to see it from 200 feet away at 6 feet above grade. That, you know, screening should be a consistent color material design of the primary structure. Mechanical equipment shall not include exhaust fans, vents, or drains. Mechanical equipment on the ground shall be screened with the use of landscaping or hard screening materials such as wood, brick, or an equivalent building material of consistent color, material, and design as the main structure. Now on the balconies, no storage on balconies, no dishes, antennas, laundry, or other items considered to be a nuisance or unsightly are allowed. Outdoor furniture is allowed. So, I mean, I feel like that maybe addresses 90% of the problems that I can think of. You know, y'all may be aware of other things that we want to throw in there. But I just felt like at least that gives us some rough idea of, you know, because, you know, the balcony is really there for obviously the enjoyment of the person using the apartment, but depending on how things develop, I mean, it can possibly have a social-like quality. But you don't want it just turning into outdoor storage or someone's, you know, drying their laundry and all that stuff. So that was the PD text. So that's kind of, I guess, the general overview of the issues that we're seeing. I think unless Ben wants to add anything else, or if y'all have questions, I think I'm comfortable shutting up for now and letting the applicant talk, and then...
Yeah, I don't have anything additional.
Okay.
Okay, so, thank you for the briefing. So this is a public, hearing. Typically what we do is let the applicant have a chance to present, his case, and then anybody who is, for this, case can speak. And then, we will open it up to anybody who has questions or is opposed to this case. And, they'll have the opportunity to let us know that, their concerns. And then we will close the public hearing and discuss the case. At this time, I'll, ask the applicant to, state their name and address and, tell us about the case.
Remember to unmute yourself.
Yeah, are you on mute?
Zeke, you're muted. He was. I think he's getting tech support now.
There we go, Justin. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi. I'm Zeke. I'm the one behind all this, part of it. Okay, you know, right now I'm living in Hillsborough, and my plans are to move up there. You know, just I had a great idea. I figured, you know, downtown is a beautiful place, you know, to start something this big and nice, and you know, just trying to follow through with this and see where it goes.
Okay, Zeke, do you have anything you'd like to tell us about maybe the parking plan or just anything about the project?
The parking spaces?
Yeah, any ideas or anything, how you might be able to get a few more parking spaces on the lot or anything?
You know what, that's, I've been working with engineers and the city planner, and, you know, we're just trying to, basically, we've tried to figure out all ends of how to come up with more space, and that's about all the best we could do for now, that as far as I could tell.
I can answer some of those questions. I'm Jorge Barragan. I'm with Walls Consultant Engineers. We're the engineers on the project. You know, we worked, try to get as much parking as we could, as Brian had mentioned earlier. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. It'd be great if we put the dumpster out there in the alley in the right of way. That'd definitely get us those 2 additional parking spaces. We switched the dumpster due to the access for the dump trucks to be able to get in there. That's why we had to put it at a 45 angle to be able to get that mobility for those vehicles to get in there. And that's why we lost those 2 additional parking spaces. Again, you know, yeah, we could put some more parking. You know, we could bring those parking back if you know, there was another consideration for the dumpsters, or, you know, like I said, yeah, it'd be great if we could put it in the alley. I don't know if the fire marshal will go something like that, but, you know, that's certainly an option. I mean, you know, the other option is probably, you know, put more parking out in the right of way there. If you know, add 2 more parking spaces, which, you know, it would probably be towards the front on the, I guess it'd be like the east right of way of South Main. You know, we may probably add 2 more parking spaces there. It would go past our property lines basically, but that's the only place I see we could possibly add some more parking, right down there where those trees are at. Maybe we can do some additional parking there. But other than, I mean, like I said, due to the mobility of the dumpster truck, that's why the dumpster has to be, you know, at that angle.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in support of this application? Okay, is there anybody?
Yes, I would.
Oh, okay. Please state your name and address. Let us know.
Mark Grove, 107 South 9. I've owned the property right next door. And I have several concerns. I've been down here for early 1990s. And obviously parking is one of the problems. I don't think there's enough parking for that size of building.
Okay, Mark, we're asking for anybody who's in support of the item right now. I'm actually was about to close it and ask for any opposition. So if there's no one in support, then we can go forward with anybody in opposition. We'll let you start off there. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, you want me to go now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I just, like I said, the main issue is going to be the parking, I think, downtown. For that size building with the possibility of 1 to 6 businesses, and then, you know, 4 apartments, yeah, I think you need a ton more parking than you have there. I think it's going to be a burden on the people who've been down here for a long time. We're going to have people parking in front of our building, which will be a burden for me because I won't be able to load and unload at my building if cars park right in front of my doors. And I understand we can't put up a we can put up a no parking, but it can't be with towing, which means it basically doesn't have any teeth if you can't put the towing to the sign. Also, I feel like apartments are going to add more crime down here to an area that already had a lot of crime in the past. I've had a truck stolen in 2018. I had attempted break-in 19. had another truck that was vandalized, eggs thrown at it. The Whataburger got robbed not long ago, and I just think apartments are going to bring more crime to the area that's already a crime-ridden neighborhood. So I'm not in favor of changing the zoning to accommodate the new owner, for that when, they're not allowed down here now. I'm also worried about the zero lot line building you're talking about doing, especially with the drainage flume next to me. I feel like that's going to get compromised if you're going to go with the zero lot line. I think the building should be pushed back some, like the other buildings are down here now.
All right, thank you for that. Anybody else in opposition to the case? Okay. Anybody else would like to make any type of comment?
I like to address his concerns regarding the drainage, but not. I mean, we're not impacting any additional drainage onto them. Matter of fact, that's very limited to that. We analyzed the site as far as drainage is concerned. If anything, it probably help his site is there's some like pampas trees, pampas grass growing on the side there that might help with the drainage on his property. But other than that, I mean, we're not discharging any water whatsoever onto that existing concrete tomb.
But I feel like you could collapse the flume if you're going to build on a zero lot line.
No, sir, it won't. It won't.
Well, I know you say no now, but you don't know that for a fact. That's old concrete out there that's been there for years and years. And you start, pushing dirt around and building right on top of that flume is where it's pretty much going to be. You're probably going to collapse it.
We have to, during construction, have to be very careful, obviously, not to get in onto that flume. So, because obviously that flume is doing the purpose, and that's directing water from your property onto that existing pipe out there.
Right. That's why if this goes through, I think you should push the building back a few feet off of that. Putting a 3-story building up there is gonna be pretty heavy. So I mean, I just think that's going to be that's just one of the many problems. And if they do this for you to accommodate a new owner, changing the zoning, are they going to do that for all of us down here if we decide to change our buildings to apartments?
I think so. That's what the whole purpose of this PD is. I think it's the initial kickoff to redevelopment downtown, and I think this would open up the doors for yourself and all the neighbors around. If they wanted to do something similar,
yeah,
you'd be allowed to do that due to the fact that the lots are so small that it would help.
Yeah, I think that's way too much building for that lot. That's my opinion. It's going to be 4 feet from my building if you build it that way, and 4 feet's not much. You got liability issues too in construction. If any debris flies over on my building or hits somebody, yes, over there mowing or anything, 3 stories, that's a lot. And you're going to have construction workers, especially subcontractors. Most of the construction is subbed out. They're in a big hurry, especially doing brick. You got chances of bricks dropping, hitting somebody. I just feel like this building needs to be pushed back some. I think it's way too wide. I understand the city is going to grow, and I don't have a problem with that and understand that, but this seems to be more of an adjustment for a new owner for a bigger tax base for the city to me, at the expense of us owners that have been down here, 30 or 40 years owning these buildings. And like I said, none of the other buildings are built this way, right on the line. But I don't think it's right for y'all to to make an exception for a new owner to up your tax base at our expense. I don't think it's right.
Okay. All right. Anybody else anybody else on the line that would like to speak? If not, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I motion to close the public hearing.
And I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor to close the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so, commissioners, let's discuss what we've heard, and, probably, I guess staff is, suggesting maybe we give the owners and, time to work on their site plan, work on some parking issues, but we'd probably like to give them some ideas of what we're thinking about it, and maybe also have some time for the owners to talk to their neighbors about concerns that they may have. I'll just start off and say that I think we do need more than 4 spaces on site. 6 to me would be the lowest, quite honestly, just because we have these are 2-bedroom units. You know, we have, I guess, 4 2-bedroom units.
Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, that's. I think you need some parking for that, plus the retail. Now, most of the retail will probably use the parking on the street, but whoever's operating that retail might needs a place to park. So, and I understand the overlap between residential and commercial, but weekends you have everyone there. You know, so as far as the dumpster, I don't know what the other businesses in the area do for trash pickup, but maybe there's opportunity to do some sort of shared dumpster down there for that whole block. I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how trash is picked up down there anyway.
Yeah, we had hoped that maybe this corner could work, and at one point we thought maybe it was even enough city right-of-way to do like a shared dumpster, but there's not enough city right-of-way to do it there. That property owner, as I said, that owns this, wasn't interested because he's selling it, and it's understandable. And so Ben and I have been talking, and this idea popped up about doing it in the alley from our discussion, which, I mean, it's a little different, but I've seen it done before. I mean, you know, again, there's sort of a trade-off. I mean, now one of the other trade-offs, just to put it out there, is, you know, again, with that idea of say, okay, let's say in theory, we can only get to 4 parking spaces on site and back. So then obviously one of the trade-offs could be, okay, then only a 2-story building. You're only going to do 2 apartment units that are 2-bedroom. That way we're still hitting the parking ratio. So that could be one of the trade-offs, you know, that you just kind of consider. You know, again, I think we all kind of, probably think that 6 on-site parking spaces, if you're going to have 4 2-bedroom apartment units, just makes sense as the minimum. I just wanted to throw out there that I guess, you know, you could say, well, we'd be okay with a 2-story and fewer units if you can't get to 6. That might be a trade-off that Zeke has to consider, you know, on how he wants to move forward. So again, like I said, there's trade-offs, and that could certainly be one of them. To Mr. Grove's comment about the construction and the maintenance and stuff with the 0 lot line, I mean, the C1 does allow the 0 lot line, except for if it's a different zoning district. In my note, I don't consider a PD that is basically the same zoning as the adjacent zoning to be substantively different. But with that said, you know, we hear his concern on the construction and maintenance, and in my experience, with the 0 lot line and stuff, yeah, it can be a challenge. I've seen where someone built 2 inches over on the other person's property. That was fun. No, it was not fun. And the construction, like seeing guys cantilevered over the wall because the adjacent property owner wouldn't grant him a temporary construction easement. So that he had people cantilevered over the air. That got messy because you still have air rights. Even in Texas, as I understand it, like if you have a 2-story building, then you have 2 stories of air. So like whatever the tallest structure on your land is considered your air right in the state of Texas, as I understand it. So I don't think we want to create drama and conflict. So I kind of like the chair's comment about Zeke may need to take some time to talk to neighbors, maybe find some agreeable solution, because that could be another issue is maybe you need to have a 5-foot side yard setback so you can safely construct and maintain the building. Not saying I would personally want that for them, I'm just saying that could be a trade-off, because even if we love the building as it is and we get to 6 parking spaces and there's a dumpster ferry that solves our dumpster problem, you know, getting it constructed and maintained is certainly an important issue to address as well. So,
And I'll just add on to that. So, you know, right now, today, he could go build a zero lot line product. He just has to come in, submit a permit, have the appropriate amount of parking on his lot. It won't be 3 stories, but he can build a zero lot line today. He's already entitled to do that. So, you know, he's literally just trying to improve upon the product that he's already entitled to do. To some of the other comments, you know, yes, you know, if you wanted to come down here and do a PD and have a nice new brick building with apartments on it, yeah, we would love that. From the city standpoint, I can't speak for P&Z and council, but from a city standpoint, we would love that. Our comprehensive plan right now actually encourages that type of thing in the downtown area. Like there's a, you know, we have several, we've got a couple on Methodist, we've got a couple right there on 342 that have businesses with apartments above it. It's a great product. I honestly think, I mean, I don't have data and statistics in front of me, but my perception is that it would actually decrease crime because more people are down there and there's less, like, because right now it's all businesses, so it's very vacant in the evenings and at nighttime and on the weekend. You got people that are living down there, people are and walking around and moving around and doing things. There's less likely for someone to like break into a adjacent property. So I think it would be good for the downtown area. But I think this is something we think is important because it would be the kickoff so that the other owners down there can go, oh man, I can do that on my property. Yeah, let's do that. So I do think his points are certainly valid. I just think I think he just needs to understand that he already has the right to go put that building right on the property line without asking anybody. And then I also think the perception of crime would actually go down due to just more activity of residents living there. So.
Commissioners, do y'all, anybody would like to make some comments or give any advice?
Yes, I have a couple. Well, if anyone else has some questions, I'll wait and let them go. But I do have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Willie.
Okay. As far as the setback concern, I do understand Mr. Grove's concerns, but if it's well within this property owner's right to build up to a zero lot, my only question would be, of course, no lot-to-lot drainage, but with the 0 side foot setback, would we require the firewalls on both sides?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd have to confirm that with the building inspector, but I'm almost certain there's a firewall requirement on both lot lines.
Okay.
But I think it may be covered by the brick, like because they would be doing exterior brick, and so I think it's covered by it being brick. So then when Mr. Groves, if he ever decided to redevelop his property, he would also do a brick wall, so you'd have a double brick wall on that lot line.
Right.
So that would act as the firewall.
Okay. Secondly, you mentioned this would be the tallest building at 40 feet. I think it's 39 feet, 11 inches I've seen. I noticed there's a single family dwelling. I'm gonna say this is to the east of the property. looking at the vicinity map, will we have any proximity slope issues?
Are you talking about like sight lines?
Right,
Like
right.
the building, he's looking back into their backyard. Yeah,
Right.
I think that's why we actually like the balconies kind of being on the front, not only for aesthetic architectural value, but also, so people aren't hanging out back there looking into the back of somebody else's property. Now, obviously, yeah, there's windows, so that could be a concern of a neighbor. But I wouldn't say it's any different than having a single story that has a two-story backing up to it. I mean, it's pretty, I would say pretty standard in a neighborhood that you could possibly have a two-story home built behind you, and they would just look in, like the windows, you would have the perception of them looking over the fence into your yard. But there's some pretty good vegetation along that roadway, trees, and they've got a pretty good fence. So I don't know. They were notified, so if they had an issue with it, they'd be telling us about it right now.
Okay, and I do understand. I mean, this is a downtown, Main Street development, so there's going to have to be some give and take. But I want to make sure with the first one, we're at least setting a standard, and not just saying, "Hey, we want the first one done. Hey, come do whatever you want to do." So I want to make sure we are kind of being fair, but also trying to be innovative with, moving towards the future. And I don't know if tandem parking would be possible, but given the size of an 80-foot lot, it's kind of limited. I'm trying to give some ideas for the parking issue.
Yeah, typically on tandem parking, you would have some kind of garage space that you could then have a, kind of a driveway space in front of the garage that you can count as tandem, but they're not really providing any covered parking on here. So, and even so, the tandem, the length required for tandem, it doesn't fit on the lot.
It wouldn't. Okay. Okay. So, those are my biggest concerns. The fire-rated walls on both zero sides, maneuverability, and that sight line going into this single-family dwelling across the alley here. But that's all I have.
Thank you, Willie. Anybody else, any other commissioners like to speak?
This is Derek Parks. I think it's it's a nice looking project, but I guess the issue with me would be the parking. It's a small lot, and it's like you're trying to squeeze a project on a lot that's maybe too small. I don't. Maybe if they, I kind of look at stuff out of the box. Maybe I don't know if they can buy the parcel next door. To me, this project probably worked totally fine, but it's like, to me, they're trying to squeeze a project on a lot that's not big enough, because like you said, the main issues is the parking. Unless they can figure that out, and if they haven't figured it out yet, I don't know. Is that something that can be figured out? Or I know they've been working on this project probably for quite some time. So if they haven't figured out the parking issue now, how's the parking issue going to be fixed, or another solution within the next couple of weeks, I guess?
It's not.
So that's kind of my issue.
Yeah, they're going to be parking into all the other buildings that are theirs parking spots. That's the problem. You got 4 apartments, you're going to have maybe 2 cars each. That's 8 right there, and you got up to 6 businesses that, even if they're just the workers for those 6 businesses, that's another 6. I agree.
Because of the number of doors potentially. You're probably going to be more like 2 to 3 max.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Parks. You're trying to squeeze way too much building in going up, and you're trying to squeeze way too much in there.
Mr. Chairman, who's
people
speaking?
that are already there.
All right. All right, anybody else,
No,
Leroy or Lance?
that was my concerns.
No, I agree with what Eric said. It seems like a lot to fit into that small space.
I do like the idea of moving the dumpster off to the alley. I know that alley's short. I don't know if it's being used, or how it's being used, but, that opens up some space. That's really good thing to look into, but I agree, there's definitely still some work to be done.
Yeah, I maybe just chime in and, well, one, I'll have we just kind of thought of that today when we were kind of sketching around on this, and so I'll have to get with Public Works, make sure they're okay with all that. But, from a downtown development standpoint, there's hundreds of cities across the nation that have, on a plot this small, have a 12-story building. Yeah, they're in New York and Seattle and these higher density places, but, that's up until right after World War II, that's how we developed property, everything was walking, and after World War II, it became very auto-centric, and so that's why we're all focused on the parking now. So it works in hundreds of cities across the nation, but I still do think it's important to consider parking because we're now an auto-centric society. But I think that's why staff has been willing to say, look, yeah, the two parking spaces per unit that's a little nutty. We can cut it down, but I'm not sure it's going to be, if we could get the 2 extra spaces back on the lot, I think that would work well. And I'm not, I think as of now, I think the businesses would probably be service oriented, like a CPA or not somewhere where like tons of people are coming down there to park and go in the office. It's going to be one guy running his little tax business or something like that down there.
Who may live in an apartment above.
Right, and that would be the other goal is like, these, or would be nice, obviously you can't like dictate that through zoning, but it'd be nice if the owners of the businesses live in the apartments above. So just something to think about when we're talking about this type of stuff, especially when it comes to downtown, because it can be, it's laid out where it can be something cool, hopefully one day.
And to add to what Ben's saying, the other thing is we do, or at least I get calls where people they want to be in Red Oak, but they don't want to be in a single family tract house. They don't want to be in a mega apartment complex. They don't want to be in a trailer home. They look actually for something like this, which may sound kind of odd, like really? But we get a fair amount of calls where some people, they kind of want something like this to be in, and the 9 times about walkable, they seem to just want to be sort of in this neo-traditional or somewhat older style urban form. And I mean, I'm sure they would like to be able to walk this stuff, but they seem to want something like this. I get calls where someone's asking about, where could I open a business and live nearby? And so I think part of it is, this is a small lot. We hear the concerns that Mr. Groves articulated very well. But this would also be like, a rounding error in the amount of housing stock we have. So, I mean, we're just trying to also, someone that used the word innovative earlier, we're just trying to offer a diversity, as it were, of housing and work choices. And we also don't really know how this whole trend that's been accelerated due to COVID is exactly going to play out. Like how many more, we're hearing like Microsoft and whoever else is saying, oh, you never have to come back to work, or you don't have to come back to work till June, and even then we don't know, and all this kind of stuff. So the way in which we live and work seems to be going through a change right now. And when we build stuff, we're building it really, it should last 50 to 100 years. So once we make these policy decisions and someone goes and spends the money and constructs and builds something, that's kind of locked in for a while. So, you know, we're also just wanting to try to make sure we think ahead on important issues about like the maintenance and things like that, and how you're going to build it, but also how will this serve Red Oak for the next half century? You know, I agree. I mean, cars aren't going away. They may not always burn gas, but your automobile, your little personal vessel in which you get around is probably, not changing. So anyways, that was just something I want to share with you, some of the background that, we get with our phone calls, and to just kind of also explain a little bit about where staff has been trying to, just kind of thinking like, what's that next half century? Because we're sort of charged with trying to think about not just the next 2 to 5 years, but the next 20 to 50 years. So.
Ben, what's the parking scenarios for the Ingram property and the Grooves property?
They right now just park kind of out in the, you want to pull up like a Google Maps.
Yeah.
They kind of just park there in the front. They don't utilize, I don't know, I'm not down there all the time. It doesn't look like they utilize the alley for anything. It just appears that they're kind of parking in the front of the building, probably half on the property, half on the right of way. Kind of how it's being used now.
Okay. Because, with downtown development, no matter where you go, parking is an issue. It's just.
Well, it's an issue if you don't like to park far away and walk.
Yeah, healthy, active living. Make you walk further.
All right, Commissioners, so staff is giving us a suggestion to hold this till next month, where everyone can work on it some more. It's our, still prerogative to do what we want, to either, so let's have a motion to do something with this. Either hold it or do something with it.
I motioned to hold. I think it was kind of going back and forth a little bit. Like I said, parking issue was, with me, I think it's a parking issue, but yes, I agree with the growth and what other cities are doing and stuff like that. If staff is fine with the parking, but I don't know. I'm kind of in between. Looking out for the other owners that's down there, and also to what we're trying to do as a city. Like I say, I can't think out of the box on certain things. Hey, if you try to put a building out there, if you're trying to develop, you might have to buy more property down there. That way you can kind of pretty much do what you want. Not do what you want, but you can kind of be up under the regulations of getting something done and a nice looking product, instead of putting the product there. You're aggravating the neighbors for the next 2 or 3 years. I don't know. I can just kind of see it going both ways. So that's my opinion.
All right, so we have a motion to hold this over till next month. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motioned and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're gonna, hear this next month.
Yeah, that'll be our plan. We'll renotice. That's not a big deal, but like y'all said, we need to work with them. They need to try to come up with some solutions, talk to their neighbors, because we want it to look good, but also this process be good.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, all right. Thank y'all for joining us tonight's meeting. So we're going to move on to our next item, which is item D. It's consider the updating of the official zoning map to the city of Red Oak.
one of these. One right. Okay, so this is not a zoning change, just so everyone's clear. Basically, all it is that, you know, we've had, you know, 20 some odd zoning changes since the map was last updated in September of 2019. So this reflects those changes. So again, we're not, this in no way is changing zoning. This is a document just showing the zoning that has changed, because our current map, that if you went to the city secretary's office and said, hey, I want to see the official zoning map, it would be a year old, and there would be 20 some odd parcels that would misinform you. So this brings it up to date. So our goal is every year to try to annually update our official zoning map. With that said, of course, I operate a GIS database. I update it every month. So I always encourage anyone listening to call me, email me, and ask me about your zoning, because again, an official zoning map could still be a year old. There is, no, that was still the binder. Okay, and so if you're curious, I'm sure you can remember all these by heart. I guess I should have numbered, but yeah, it seems like it was over 20 zoning cases between PDs, SUPs, and straight zoning districts. I'm sorry for the general public, PDs, Plan Development Zoning District, where we change from a regular zoning district usually to a custom zoning district called a Plan Development Zoning District. And then SUPs are specific use permits, of which you can think of simplistically as sort of like an overlay on top of a standard zoning district, allowing some other use or structure. So this just, again, this official map is not changing the zoning, it is merely documenting the zoning that has changed. So with that, that's all there is to it.
Thanks, Brian. Brian, can we just ask you a question? Why don't we just do this every time we change? So why don't we update in a previous life, somewhere else, every time we pass a zoning ordinance, we had just a paragraph at the end of the ordinance that said, hereby direct the Director of Planning and Development to update the official zoning map, and it was just kind of done.
Yeah, our ordinance says that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I still have to make the map.
Wow.
Yeah, just FYI, previously we were farming it out to Freeze and Nichols, and it hadn't been, so when I started here, it hadn't been updated since 2014. And so last year was the first time I got them to actually update it. And then Brian said, hey, well, I can do it and save us a ton of money. I was like, great.
About
let's do that.
16,000.
Yeah.
Love that.
So yeah, from a timing and staff standpoint, can't do it a whole bunch.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to ask this.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, but,
Good question.
but, I mean, my hope is one day we'll have a GIS interactive web map that will be updated monthly. The idea I'm working on is sort of an interim step is, and you and Willie may know this, you know, so when you create a GIS map to a PDF, you can do it as a geographic PDF. So like each layer you can turn on and off. So I'm kind of playing with that to see if I can't create like a sort of actually a set of informational maps, but one being zoning. And that would be, I think, easy enough to do every month. I just don't know if we necessarily want to mess with paying the city attorney money. I'm cheap. That's what it is. I'm just cheap.
No, I totally understand. Things are
but we do want accurate, timely information to the public. That we agree that's important. So we definitely are going to elevate that game for sure.
Okay. All right. So this is a public hearing, so we will open it up to anybody on the line who would like to speak to item D, the official zoning map. Is there anybody who would like to speak to that at this time? Okay, not hearing anyone, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I motion to close the public hearing.
And I second.
All right, motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
All right.
All right, motion carries. Commissioners, do y'all have any, discussion about that one?
No discussion.
Not for me, none discussion.
All right, can I have a motion to, I guess, approve that?
I motion to approve agenda item D.
I second.
All right. Okay. All right, thank you, guys. It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, anybody opposed? Okay. Hearing none. So, motion, or item D is approved. And, it brings us to, item E, which is, just a staff update on the comprehensive plan and the new, parks trail.
Yeah. So we're just continuing to share information back and forth with the consultant at this point. And do we have our steering committee set, Ben? Sure.
We have given a list to the mayor, and he is
Reviewing it?
reviewing to pick
Okay.
people for the steering.
So we're still formalizing that list. I guess that's about all I know. Our consultants, I mean, we've had some Zoom meetings and going over like a land use assumptions for the transportation, and so I mean, there's doing, I guess, a lot of prep work. So whenever a steering committee does meet, they have something to look at and to inform a conversation based on information that's been produced by the consultant. So I think that's really about it at this point.
It for now. Yeah.
Okay, I just leave it in as sort of a standard thing, and that way, if anyone wants to talk about it, we always can.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. I want to take the opportunity to welcome Ms. Campbell. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Look forward to working with you in the future. And I think that's the last item on our agenda. So I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
And I second that.
All right. All in favor, please say aye. All right. We are adjourned.